Hey, I warmly welcome you to this reading, in which we'll see what awaits you in 2026, and we'll see what you can expect from it. First of all, from a person. We'll see who will enter your life this year. We'll see whether it will be someone specific, some specific relationship, or maybe something more like an acquaintance. So perhaps some love, perhaps something fresh, new, um, perhaps someone old. We'll see. So I think it's worth listening and seeing what the energy of your 2026 looks like when it comes to relationships. I warmly invite you. Let's see how this looks. We have three questions here. So, first, we'll look at this person's identity, then their role in your life, and finally, the future and potential direction between you. So, I think it's worth staying until the very end to hear the complete reading. All right, let's see what's visible here and what you can expect from this year 26. The Five of Swords at the very beginning in the context of identity is definitely a card, I would say, showing someone who carries within themselves the history of several difficult battles, not necessarily visible on the outside. This is a person who learned early on that the world can be a harsh place, and people don't always play fair, which is why they developed a vigilance that sometimes turns into excessive suspicion. In year 26, someone enters your life who seems very tough, but this toughness isn't aggression. It's a shield they haven't been able to put down for a long time. In their relationship with you, from the beginning, there will be a palpable tension characteristic of a person who prefers to take control before someone else surprises them. At the same time, it's precisely from this tension that their greatest charm will come. Intensity, presence, the way they can look at another person without pretending to be someone else, right? So this is someone who has experienced betrayal, rivalry, or relationships in which they had to fight for their position in the past. That's why their energy carries this kind of pride and unwillingness to lose. Such a person can enter someone's life suddenly, very forcefully, with great momentum, and at the same time, from the first moments, gives the feeling that they're not pretending anything. This honesty, even if sometimes harsh, will be the first thing that attracts you to them. In year 26, someone will appear who is hard to ignore. They have a distinctive way of being that immediately fills the space, as if they've always been accustomed to having to be visible, because only then can no one hurt them. At the same time, the Five of Swords shows a person who has gone through a life turning point, someone who has left something behind, perhaps by their own decision, perhaps after a conflict that forced changes. They carry within themselves the energy of someone who has learned to cut off people and situations when they feel threatened. And this is a paradox, because on one hand this is a mentally strong person, but on the other hand precisely exceptionally vulnerable. Exceptionally vulnerable, it seems, to this sense of loss, which is why they sometimes react excessively, defensively. In your life, this will be someone who will open up slowly, but when they do, their commitment will intensify. They can't do things half-heartedly, they can't create superficial relationships. They always enter with their whole self, though they're afraid to admit that this is exactly what they desire. Meanwhile, the Ten of Cups. And listen, I immediately feel a warming of this heavy energy. I mean, heavy in a sense, not heavy, but precisely sharp. I think that's a good description. However, here we have the Ten of Cups, which very nicely softens everything for us. And after the intensity and hardness shown by the Five of Swords, we have the Ten of Cups, which is a card that actually reveals such a second side, such a very surprising layer of this person. You see a person who on one hand carries within themselves a history of battles, and on the other has an incredibly soft, familial, warm interior that they can't show right away. In year 26, someone enters your life who deeply desires stability and a sense of belonging, though in the past they did everything to pretend they didn't need this. This card shows a dreamer hidden under the mask of a warrior, a person who can love very intensely. In year 26, someone enters your life who deeply desires stability and a sense of belonging, though in the past they did everything to prove they didn't need it at all. And this is kind of the most important stage, right? So in year 26, someone arrives who wants stability. This person has an extremely strong need for emotional security, but has suppressed it within themselves for a long time. The Ten of Cups reveals what becomes visible only when their armor begins to fall. With you, this person will start dreaming of a life that is no longer one big battle, but imagines an everyday life with soft light, in which no one has to prove they deserve love. This is the foundation of everything, and although they won't allow themselves such desires for a long time, In year 26, they will start to feel that they're ready to create something real, especially when meeting you, right? So it's more like you are the activator of these emotions in them rather than them on their own. Searching, let's say they have Tinder and are looking for someone somewhere on various accounts. So I think this is a very nice combination, one that softens this reading and shows that generally, despite all the struggles they've been through, there's quite a lot of room here to create something really from the ground up and completely good. So this year 26, when it comes to these relationships, looks quite good for you so far. We'll see what shows up next and what the prognosis or potential of this relationship will be somewhere, and whether there will be something more from this. So I encourage you to listen further, and in the meantime, I'll remind you about the website duchoakirunek.pl. If you feel you need a private reading more specific to your individual situation, I invite you to duchoakirunek.pl, link in the description. Meanwhile, the third and last card in the context of the first question, the World card, and the World closes this quite well for us, this first part, the first segment, because the World is, well, in itself a card of completion. So it shows someone who, in year 26, enters your life as a person maturing to a new stage, as if all the earlier experiences, the harsh ones from the Five of Swords, and those more longing for tenderness from the Ten of Cups, were starting to come together as a whole within them. So this is a person who enters your world with the energy, you could say, of someone who is ending a big cycle, closing some old story, and is ready to open something completely new. And they won't go back to old battles anymore, won't repeat old mistakes, won't fight for survival. In year 26, standing before you is someone who has truly matured to their own happiness. The World shows a person who has enormous internal coherence within themselves. This isn't someone broken or chaotic or looking for random expressions. They already understand who they are and what they want. That's precisely why their presence will be so clear and so attractive to you. So, this won't be someone who appears somewhere, let's say, I don't know, at work, and you'll say, well, pretty cool person, but it will be more noticeable that you'll say, damn, well, this person is really interesting, and it will be more like interest, right? At least that's how I see it, that it will go somewhere in this direction. But for now, we don't know who this person is. I mean, we know who this person is from their identity, but maybe we'll see better what role they'll play in your life. That is who they'll be for you. This is very important, I think, so we'll see if it's part of something big, or maybe something more calm, light, someone for parties, for drinks and conversations. We start with the High Priestess, the first position in this question. And here the High Priestess is certainly an extremely deep card. This also translates to the relationship that will form between you. So this relationship will be quite a deep relationship. So this isn't a random relationship, it's not light, it's not superficial. This person enters your space to open something in you that has been demanding recognition for a long time. The Priestess speaks of a meeting that doesn't just touch emotions, but your entire inner structure. So this is someone who will start to stir your intuition, your inner voice, premonitions that you previously didn't listen to or pushed aside. In their presence, you'll start to feel more, deeper, more subtly, as if an invisible stream of understanding runs between you that doesn't need to be explained with words. So they're not someone from the outside for you, someone random, but someone your soul recognizes faster than your mind can react. This person will become a mirror for you, in which you will see all your unspoken desires and those fragments of yourself that until now were dormant. The Priestess very often indicates a relationship that opens the door to deeper awareness, to the truth about yourself, that truth that can no longer be ignored. So with this person, you'll start to sense subtle differences between what you really feel and what you only thought you should feel. This meeting has a mysteriousness to it, but not in the sense of a threat, rather in the sense of a very intimate entry into areas that you haven't explored until now. They will be someone who will make you start trusting yourself more than ever before. The Priestess as this person's role also speaks of an extremely strong bond forming between you, almost telepathic. Sometimes before a word is spoken, you'll already know what they want to say. And this is such a damn situation that gives me something to think about, which makes me understand that perhaps this isn't about some acquaintance, about just anything, but about something deeper. In the fifth position, we have the Star, which is a card, well, a card of hope, really. A card that after the Priestess, which already in itself showed the extraordinary spiritual and emotional depth of this relationship. But the Star is such a card that adds like a dimension of healing. Perhaps if you feel that you feel tired or in a certain way worn down by the relationships that have been in your life until now, then precisely year 26. And this relationship can change that. They can primarily be such a healing relationship that is one that looks at your needs and above all takes them into account in plans or actions. The Star shows a relationship in which slowly but consistently your faith in yourself returns. This is someone who looks at you with enormous gentleness, but at the same time sees you more clearly than you've ever seen yourself. And with their presence comes healing of places in you that were muted or even closed off. This meeting not only brings hope, but also makes you start thinking about your life in terms of possibilities, not limitations. The Star is not a promise of expectations, but a space in which you can dream again without fear. And this is such, I think, the most important conclusion, also a plus of all this energy today. Perhaps your dreams recently took a backseat somewhere, some further, more distant plans, and this relationship shows you that this must come back. This must be in first place. So this is, I think, very nice because it doesn't so much give you emotional satisfaction, but rather, in addition to that, it also gives you such a sense of strength within yourself. However, the Star itself is also a card that often describes breakthrough relationships. For me, this relationship has such significance. I mean, it can have such significance, and this is very, very important. Meanwhile, the third and last position in this question, Knight of Swords, who rides on a motorcycle, who is quite energetic. And to this energy of who this person will be, what this relationship will be, brings quite an important message. Well, because the first two cards were delicate, but this Knight of Swords is more mobile, more such, breaking through stagnation, decisive, concrete, and this might have been missing before. Now it appears, so I have the impression that in their presence, you start to see that some decisions can be simple, that you don't need to analyze for too long. So this is also a person who perhaps will teach you in a certain sense to make decisions faster. This is interesting, and also in such, more trivial contexts, where perhaps you would normally think for a long time about how to approach it, what to do, and here this person will teach you that sometimes perhaps it's worth thinking less about it and doing more, and somehow it will work itself out. Of course, I don't mean in every sense, but I think that in certain situations this is exactly the case. So the Knight completes the story of their role in such a way that everything starts to form a colorful picture. This person brings into your life, your entire life, depth, healing, purpose, gives you insight into yourself, opens your heart, and then adds momentum, courage, and logic, where previously there was a lack of strength to take the next step. So this will also be such a driving force, perhaps, for action in some matters, even professional or family ones, and generally action to improve whatever it is. And the third question, which I think is very important in this reading, that is the question about what the future is, how this acquaintance develops and how lasting it is, what you can expect emotionally and practically. This is important because, well, of course, here we'll know what specifically to expect from this person. Strength is the first card in the future block, speaks of a relationship that matures in an extremely stable way, and this is nice, I think, but we talked about this earlier too. However, this card itself has incredible gentleness. So well, Strength always speaks of this taming of the lion, but not through a cage, only through conversation or such getting to know each other, and in your life this relationship will start bringing lightness where previously there was struggle. Perhaps precisely even in personal relationships where, for example, you had some struggles, where you felt that, you had to try for every relationship, fight, battle with fate, and here this won't be the case. And this is, I think, very, very nice. This person will act on you like a bomb, but at the same time with them, your most courageous, most confident part will start to emerge, so they don't suppress your strength. This is precisely this conversation. This isn't locking in a cage, only conversation and trying, so to speak, to tame it, right? Without, so to speak, using direct force. So, this is really interesting because Strength also clearly says that this relationship in the future is lasting. So this isn't a sign of a fleeting meeting. Year 26 will open a relationship for you that perhaps will develop not only for this year, it'll be something longer. It will be, perhaps even a chapter in your life, perhaps several chapters, if it lasts even longer. 2/2. So, this is nice in that this won't be someone who appears, let's say, I don't know, in January, and in February they're already gone because, I don't know, they forgot to reply or something. That's not the case here, and this is very nice because this is something stable, and I think that's what we're looking for most in life. So nice, really nice. Let's see what else appears here. What perspective between you might be played out here? Knight of Wands. And this is a card that certainly shows us fire. Wands is fire. However, above all, after the calm, tender energy of strength, a knight appears who brings fire, impulse, and enormous passion, and a certain kind of boldness, I would say, which might have been missing in this relationship earlier. This is that stage of the relationship which, has already rooted itself a bit somewhere. You already feel comfortable around each other. You feel such ease that you can joke about what you want, that you can talk about what you want, that this person is trustworthy, but also such that you feel this distance you have to each other, to this relationship and so on. And you can precisely because of this talk about whatever you like. So while this is a nice card, this is also generally a card that speaks of very strong fascination. So you may feel that after a period of stable building of this bond, suddenly a wave of very intense emotions appears. So intense that it's hard to stop it. In this relationship appears a desire for adventure, shared experiences, creating stories that will be remembered for a long time. And this is, I think, very concrete signal here, well, somewhere. In connection with the knight here who appeared in the 6th position, that is the Knight of Swords, you can expect that they will propose some trips. Some trip perhaps will be proposed in this year 26. Some such trip will come out of this relationship, right? It doesn't have to be anything big, but something perhaps together. So nice. I think so, at least, because after the rest of the cards, I think this is quite a nice relationship. That's why I also think that a trip won't be bad here. And the Ace of Swords in the 9th position, that is the card closing this reading. The Ace of Swords closes this reading extremely clearly. That is, this relationship enters a stage of full awareness, truth, honesty, and decisions that have a real impact on your lives. So, this shows us that this won't be a relationship that is somewhere in your life, but let's say, well, I don't know, one eye on Morocco, the other on this relationship, and you just live like that. This is a relationship that changes something that you think about, that you have doubts about somewhere, or some such emotions connected with it, that when you think about it, you feel tension somewhere, right, in your brain. So this is a relationship that affects your life also more physically. So precisely maybe some trip, something like that. You can expect that this will be someone who, for example, is not from your city, but somewhere nearby, for example. However, long term, this is a nice direction, such a direction that doesn't assume a relationship for life yet, but speaks of a relationship that builds nicely and then transitions into a state of more such fascination. So you may notice over time that this is someone who is worth trusting, that this time this is a person who means something more. This isn't another person who comes for a moment and then you get bored with them and drop it. There's something different here. There's a completely different, so to speak, pattern, and you might like this pattern. Yes, at least that's what I think. And this is really nice. I think so. So that's probably all in this reading. I said everything. In year 26, expect a relationship. Expect a relationship that will come, will be very friendly, and then emotions will appear. However, I think that not everything has been said yet, but I also don't want to drag it out, so perhaps soon some more readings for year 26 will appear, in which we'll explain to ourselves more specifically what might be in this relationship, what its energy is, how you'll recognize this person. So probably soon such videos, such readings will appear. And meanwhile, I sincerely thank you for listening to the end. If you're still here, it means that very, very loyally you sat here with me. So thank you sincerely, because that means a lot. And meanwhile, thank you, and I wish you a beautiful, wonderful day. Until we hear each other. Hey,